Hi guys, it's Kylan, and I wanted to present on the queer history of India and the effect of colonization on that. I went to India over the summer last summer for 5 weeks, and it was a really immersive experience, and I just find it really interesting to learn about, and so I just wanted to share that with you guys. So I just wanted to first give some historical context, like before the 1700s and pre-colonization. In India, dating back to ancient times, queerness has been ingrained in the culture, history, and mythology. And here are some examples. So first, like there has been diverse sexualities and gender identities in a lot of ancient Indian texts, like the Kama Sutra, which is basically the Hindu ancient Sanskrit text on like desire, eroticism, love and sexuality. Like I'm sure you guys have probably heard of like the famous sex position book. I don't know how to say a lot of these words because my Hindi is not very great, so bear with me. There was also like I think 20 something definitions of different sexualities and genders in like the Sanskrit dictionary, and also um, in the collection of Hindu religious law books um, that defined 14 different like gender identities, like trans and non-binary identities. There's also like a specific defined third gender in like Indian historical culture. Even more, there's like a bunch of queer love stories woven into religious teachings in Hinduism and also just like Indian and even Bengali mythology. For example, Mitra and Varuna, so sorry. It's like a love story between these two male sun gods. It's like very intense love story, and they even end up like having a child because like their sperm both spilled on like a termite filled ground and they were blessed with a child. Um, Another one in a Bengali epic where these two queens are gifted a child from the gods, and they actually like raise the child together and grow into like a bond of lovers. And for Hari and Hara, it's these two men in like this mythological story that give birth to actually a god, Ayappa. So like even like how queer people can be responsible for the gift of life for the gods, I thought was really interesting. And finally, there's like a lot of exploration of gender queerness in religion and mythology as well. There's a Hindu epic where a character kind of dresses in drag, like Mulan style, but like opposite, to teach arts to the princess in the story. There's also a Hindu legal text that defines like an array of gender identities similar to the collection of books detailing Hindu religious laws. I believe there's like 15 definitions just of different like diverse gender identities. And finally, um, the Hindu god Shiva has an androgynous form that I will actually get into in the next slide. So this is Shiva's androgynous form. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how to say the name. Let me move my camera. But the name of this form translates directly from Hindi to the Lord who is half woman. So in a lot of depictions of Shiva in this form, as you can see, like split right down the middle is half male, half female. Shiva like is and continues to be a pillar in Hinduism, highly respected, celebrated, and honored by people who practice the Hindu religion. Shiva, throughout history and even today, like reappears in many religious texts and stories. And even with like how queerness is perceived today in the society, the deity's like significance has definitely not faded at all. Even now, there are like annual specific festivals and rituals dedicated solely to Shiva in this specific form as well. This form in particular comes from a scripture where Shiva merges himself with Parvati, who is the goddess of fertility and love. And from what I've gathered from my friend from India who I've been talking to, and also the internet, is also his wife. And it's to teach a lesson that both masculine and feminine energies are essential to all things in life, because these combined forces provide unity and balance. And I just felt like um, it's just like a really important message that this story gives across. Like it's very much emphasizing that you have to have both, and it's kind of going against like the whole binary. So to get into how things have changed today, I definitely want to touch on like just a brief overview of India's colonization. I know we all took history class, but of course, when the European countries first began exploration and conquest, India was determined to be a valuable asset for the Dutch's trading opportunities, because of their like resources and location and all that, as you recall. And of course, they established the Dutch East India Company in 1602, which increased the country's desirability, India being the country, to the rapidly expanding British Empire. The Dutch didn't have that big of an effect on like um, erasing Indian culture as much as the British did, as like after the British won the 1757 Battle of Plassey, um, which then allowed Britain to be able to dictate India's social, cultural, and judicial framework in the country, um, which obviously still affects them today, which I will get into in the next slide. Um, for the colonies, there was the Britain like Victorian era purity campaign in the 18th century, and that brought about a lot of sexual regulation policies, which actually marked the first time that homosexuality was condemned by the state. Previously, like in India, homosexuality was like people were very indifferent towards it, like minimum no animosity, but even more like accepted. Like it just was something that happened, like it wasn't, anything to look down upon. And this kind of marked a time where things were changing and their culture was getting changed. So finally today, I just want to talk quickly about the lasting impact of British rule on queer life in present day India. Um, in 2013, there was a lot of uproar, and activist efforts against the judicial system's decision to uphold Section 377, which is basically just like an anti-gay law that like criminalizes homosexuality, and says that like any sexual activities that are against nature are forbidden, which was heavily implying that. Um, and in 2013, the judicial system literally just was like, no, we're going to keep doing that. Um, but then the Indian government, like Supreme Court, didn't even overturn this law after that until 2018, which is over 70 years after their independence in 1947. So they are still being affected. Like 2018 is pretty recent, like in the grand scheme of things. So it took them over 70 years to try to break free from that hold that the British colonization had on them. There has been some limited progress, but emphasis on limited. This was mostly with the rise of lesbian communities in the late 90s. There was a specific film in like 1998 that stirred a bunch of controversy, but ended up making some good progress. Um, Even more like this is still all very recent, like I just said, like same-sex intercourse itself was only decriminalized in 2009. And of course, the struggle for equal rights is still ongoing. Like, gay marriage is still not legal. In 2023, the Supreme Court even rejected the notion to legalize same-sex marriage again, even though this was kind of contradictory because they argued that individuals have the right to choose their partner without facing discrimination and then just didn't legalize it. I don't know, it's just not recognized there. I was speaking with my friend who lives in Jaipur, Rajasthan. It's kind of like North India, kind of. And we were just talking about the topic in general, and she's like, yeah, I guess you can like go to like a temple and like you can go through all the motions, but nobody would recognize it. And she was like, if I was ever gay, like my mom would be like so mad at me. So even the like perception of being gay is just completely changed in society. When I went there and like I was talking with people on my study abroad, like they were like, "Oh my gosh, are you gay?" Because I brought like a pride flag, and so it was just like a really interesting experience to like see people be so shocked at like my gender and sexuality. Um, it's something that's still, of course, a work in progress. And to finish it up, this picture is just this couple that is the reason that the 2023 decision happened. They were trying to get married basically, and the Supreme Court was just like, that's still illegal. So I just wanted to include them as some of the most recent faces of the topic. And yeah, thanks so much. I hope you learned something or enjoyed. And these are my works cited. Let me move my face. Thank you. Bye.